and let the comedy begin. Like, I'm not sort of cripplingly depressed, I'm just sort of moderately sad all the time. Like, I cry in the bath, but not enough to fill it up by myself. It's normally about 50% salt water by the end. Like, it's salty enough to preserve meat, but not enough to keep fish alive. We've got a leak on our bathroom floor, which means whenever anyone has a bath, all the water drips through into the living room. Which means that my housemates can tell when I've had a bad day because the sofa smells like Cornwall. They used to get worried, now they only knock on the door if the drips turn red. But, like, the bath's definitely the best place to cry. Like, public toilets are alright, but if you're going to do that, you should always go for a disabled one because you get a bar to lean on. And no one asks you what's wrong because they're worried you might show them. Don't worry, by the way, this whole set's not just going to be Martin's guide to crying in public. I want to save most of that for my book. It's basically just strategies for getting away with it. Like, chapter 1's called Blaming It on Hay Fever. The front cover's just me holding an onion and winking. I think it's mostly just loneliness though. Like, I've been single 4 years now, and 4 years, by the way, is the point at which Facebook stops giving you adverts for dating websites and starts giving you adverts for suicide helplines. And also organ donation, which I think is something of a mixed message. It's like, don't do it, but it would really help us if you did. Try to land on your face. That's the only part no one wants. I had an extra joke at this point about organ donation being the only way I could ever be inside a woman again. But I decided you were better than that. 4 years is a long time though, and you do catch yourself doing quite irrational things just out of desperation. Like, I started to buy Werther's Original, because I figure that anyone with a grandson must have got laid at least once. I consider it a very long-term investment. I can't drive and I've never owned a car, but I'm going to keep buying insurance till I've got enough soft meerkats to make my bed feel less empty. I'm starting to lose my hair now as well, which probably isn't going to help. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference to my love life. Just to put it bluntly, there are so many better reasons not to fuck me. Like, me losing my hair at this point is like a leper losing another finger. It's like a burns victim worrying about crow's feet. It's not going to make that much difference. And I've done what every young man does when he starts to lose his hair. I've grown a beard, which is so stupid, like, as if we think that's how girls' minds work. Like they have some sort of hair quota. And as long as you've got enough, they don't care where it is. Like, hey, I met this guy the other night and he only had one arm, but he had 3 legs, so I'm definitely still going to fuck him. As long as he meets my limb quota, it's fine. I've done the other trick in the balding man's book as well, which is to cut your hair very short. The idea being that your hair's shorter at the back and the front bit is less obvious. And it does work. Like, I definitely look less bald like this, but it's quite sobering at the same time to think that the majority of my sex appeal is now based on an optical illusion. I might look tall, but I'm actually just standing really close to you. And I mentioned this to my mum. And she refuses to accept that I'm losing my hair, and she justified it brilliantly. She said, "You're not going bald, your forehead's just growing." And I was like, of course, that early 20s forehead spurt. That's absolutely textbook. But that's a pretty heroic level of denial, isn't it? That's like saying to someone, "You're not going blind, things are just blurrier these days." You're not bulimic, you're just allergic to all food. And I know she's only trying to make me feel better, but I do worry how far she'd go with it. Like, I've just got this vision of me one day showing her an MRI scan and her saying, "Don't worry, you've always had quite a lumpy pancreas." It's not just her though, I think it's quite a common trait amongst Jewish parents to try and make your child feel better at any cost. And if you look back through history, there are loads of examples of famous Jews that have come up with sort of outlandish excuses to try and protect the feelings of their children. Like, not many people know this, but Albert Einstein had a daughter called Bethany, And Bethany was very overweight. And the other kids were very mean to her at school. They called her names like Fat Bethany. E equals MC Fat. This doesn't sound very funny, but bear in mind this was a good 2 years before Einstein published his theory of and so what the kids lacked in wit, they definitely made up for in foresight. But one day in about 1906, Bethany came home in floods of tears, and she said to her dad, "Dad, I can't take this anymore. The other kids won't leave me alone. I've tried dieting, I've tried exercising. No matter what I do, I just seem to keep getting fatter." And Einstein, being a caring Jewish parent, much like my mum, said the first thing that came into his mind to try and make his daughter feel better, which was, "You're not getting fatter, the universe is shrinking." He then spent the next 10, 11 years developing his general theory of relativity, which set the mathematical framework for the theory of the expanding and contracting universe. But sadly, by the time he published his findings in 1916, Bethany was long dead from diabetes. Shortly before she died, doctors determined that her weight problems were due entirely to her love of Japanese food, particularly a savoury pancake dish called okonomiyaki, which was imported in vast quantities from the Japanese city of Hiroshima. And as Bethany lay dying in her hospital bed, she looked her dad in the eye and whispered, "Get revenge." But I do find the only thing I sort of really enjoy nowadays is marijuana. And I've been having a lot of green days lately. If you don't know, a green day is a day where you do nothing but smoke weed. And it's not to be confused with a Green Day, which is a day where you do nothing but listen to Green Day. And with that in mind, the only way I can accurately describe last weekend is a Green Day, because I spent the day getting stoned and listening to Green Day. But then when I thought about it, I realised that because I'd been indoors all day, I hadn't driven anywhere, I hadn't used any petrol, and I'd even found the time to do some recycling, which means that my Green Day was actually very environmentally friendly, making it a Green Day. And I decided that this act of getting stoned whilst listening to Green Day and recycling is such a noble one that it really deserves to be celebrated with its own national holiday, which would of course be called Green Day Day. And I've been campaigning really hard to get this to happen, but so far the only place that's shown any interest is a small city in Wisconsin, USA, a place called Green Bay. Where I'm proud to announce they will this year be holding the first annual Green Bay Green Day Day. The only problem is that it clashes with St. Patrick's Day. Which, as you know, is something of a Green Day in itself. And on a badly drawn banner, the shamrock and the marijuana leaf are almost indistinguishable. And so what the local council have done is they've decided that anyone wishing to take part in the first annual Green Bay Green Day Day will be required to wear red. I'm going to leave it there, thank you.